everybody, I'm Joe Killinger. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur, and we put these videos together every week to give you all the tips and insights from my experience over the last several years. So make sure you tune in and subscribe, and thank you.
Let's talk about, you're looking at properties. I know you guys can add some value to my listeners as to, some high level things to consider when they're evaluating a property.
It's the most critical thing right off the bat. Once you know the asset class you want, you need to know how to put a value on it.
Right.
And, and this is George's real strength is evaluation. So I'll let you speak to that.
Okay. Initially, and it's interesting because even from the brokerage side of things, as well as from my investment side, I get asked this quite often. And, on the very high level, it boils down to that old adage, old saying, location, location, location.
Right.
That being said, at the same time, you want to look at, I've always been because I'm a little bit more conservative, I always look for a cash flow evaluation first and foremost, and then going into evaluate the actual returns, looking at the profit and losses for the last 12 months and 24 months preferably, and month by month, looking for something that's outstanding, what's wrong, what might be a little too high, anomalies, understanding what the norm is, and then looking for those anomalies, and then realizing, well, here's what the cash flow is, or here's what the real cash flow is, building in actual forecasting. The next step would be to build in a forecast for the next, for your investment term, for the next, whether it's 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years, but also building into that reserves. When you do your due diligence on the property, you want to make sure you do what we call a reserve study analysis, where you're actually looking at the major components of the building, what's it going to cost to replace it and roughly when, and then put aside those reserves, because that does impact cash flow. So we take a look at all of that, and then from that we then look at how can I now create value. I know.
Right. Let me stop for 1 second. So, guys, when he's talking about creating reserves, the larger, when you get into agency debt, they'll actually require it. Okay. But it's something you should do even if you buy a duplex. Okay. You need to take a look at when you can expect the life of the roof to go out, the systems, the parking lot, all the different components that wear out, and you put some money aside for that eventuality, so you don't get hit. And again, you get into larger loans with banks and agency debt, and they're going to require it anyway. So anyway, sorry, please continue.
No. So, and then as part of it as well, we start looking at, the lease rates of the properties, the units, compare it to comparables that are in the area. What is actually being leased? Be aware that, some landlords may never think to, especially the smaller landlords, never think to increase their rents. They just have, the tenant's been there for 10, 15 years and they're paying way below market rate rents.
Right.
Be aware they're afraid they're going to leave.
Or they're afraid they're going to leave. And
right. Well, that's usually the reason. They don't want to deal with the hassle of having to relet the property. Yes. They'll just take less income and leave it alone. Right.
I don't think they realize the damage that does to the asset, the value of the asset.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, but also we have to be aware when you're evaluating the local municipalities and the laws, meaning if you're looking at an asset that looks like a great deal because you can raise the rents tremendously, but you're in a rent control neighborhood,
right,
such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, or a myriad of other small areas, you have to be aware of that. So really I need to understand as a landlord coming in, what are your options? What can I do for this property? What terms of the lease do I inherit, or the rental agreement that I inherit, and what terms can I change?
Right.
So,
right. Let me interject one thing here, guys. whatever market you're in, you better know the landlord-tenant laws, period. Even if you're not in a rent control market, talk to an eviction attorney. There's usually one guy in every market that does lots of evictions. They're a great resource. There's nothing more painful than to go to eviction court and see that landlord that doesn't know what he's doing and have the judge gleefully tell them they have to start all over again. So know the landlord-tenant laws, know what you can do, and also know what you can't do from a discrimination standpoint as well. So just educate yourself. I just want to interject as you're going through this because you're going through it quick, but it's great content. Okay, keep going.
Absolutely. So that's, from there, once you have an understanding of what your rental rates should be, as well as what your expenses should be, then you can actually get an idea as far as, well, here are my projections, here's what I want to do. And then you can actually then compare it. A lot of times when someone talks about evaluations, they look at things from cost per unit versus, or they may call it cost per door.
Cost per square foot, and right. It's irrelevant. It's how well does it cash flow?
Absolutely. And also brokers will use that a lot of times to make a property look better. For instance, they'll say cost per unit or cost per door is really low, but they may be comparing a property that's all studios to one that's all 2 bedrooms. Yeah. And of course the cost per unit is going to be lower.
Right.
So be aware of that and be aware of what actually is the pro forma and what's the current. And then you can then create a real evaluation. Understand what, we love using cap rates in our business because I think looking at the net operating income versus the sales price is one of the best ways to determine the value, a true value of a property versus a cost per square foot, cost per door, cost per unit, or anything else.
Great, because it utilizes the net income versus
Absolutely.
Right, these
Absolutely.
Other things. Right. Okay.
And even the numbers, if they're going out to the brokerage community, they want to make sure the numbers that they're looking at are real numbers, not projected income.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. You get the pro forma from these guys, and it's 95% of the package is pro forma, which for most practical purposes is toilet paper, and you got to work it yourself, and you really need actuals. You need to know what the property has done. And
not just toilet paper, it's rough toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Right.
We get a good number of calls in the office saying, "Hey, I bought this property," and you can just see that they went off the performance.
Yeah, I tell my students, I think it was you, George, that's got the auction background. I tell them, listen, a great place to learn is auctions because usually those packages are more complete. You'll get more information because they know that you've got to do all your due diligence before the auction day. If you're the high bidder at the auction, it's your deal or you lose big money. So, sometimes that's a better place to learn. I tell people, register on all the auction sites, and I know you were in some of the big ones. But yeah, okay. So look at real historical financial data versus unit cost versus square footage cost.
And then create your own pro forma.
And create your own pro forma. And guys, you really have to take a hard look at the expenses as well, especially on smaller properties. A lot of the properties the owner is handling the management. You got to bring the management in. You've got to make sure you up the taxes because they're going to go up when you buy the property, and make sure you've got real numbers in there for repairs and maintenance and things. It's called normalizing the expenses. And I did a Facebook Live post on this, guys. So if you go to the big multifamily group and look for that, you'll be able to see I think we've got a spreadsheet there that lists some averages. But anyway, so please continue. So that's evaluation.